Welcome to MSU People, highlighting the noteworthy people and projects of the Michigan State University community. Our host for MSU People is Jonathan Trites.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Trites. Thanks for joining us today. My two guests are two student athletes, members of MSU's women's rugby team. Alex Honey is a senior studying engineering and telecommunications, and Sarah Conroy is a senior studying biomedical laboratory sciences. Thank you for being with me today.
Thanks.
So, the topic of the day, rugby. What is it? How do you play it? And more importantly, why? Alex, I'm going to bring it to you first. As you probably know better than anyone else, rugby is not the most commonly taught about sport here in the U.S., and when it is, it's typically referred to as more of a men's sport. So when you tell people that you play rugby, what is their reaction?
Most people I tell that I play rugby are really taken aback, and then they're shocked and surprised. They're like, wow, like you play rugby, you don't look like a rugby player at all. Like you said, there's a stereotype for male players that are big and strong, and here we are, like these little girls, and then we play the same sport that they do, and it's pretty impressive.
Yep. Sarah, and along the same lines, how do people treat you, I don't know, maybe differently when they find out that you're a rugby player?
I think, as Alex said, they're pretty taken aback. You have the stereotype, and when you see someone that's smaller, people tend to be surprised on that. I found that it's a really great talking point, and people are really interested in it, and I like to teach people about rugby, so it kind of works in my favor too.
In a way, do you kind of take any pleasure in, like shattering these people's expectations? Alex, like when you tell someone, does it give you any kind of satisfaction to see the surprise on their face?
Oh yeah, I love talking about playing like a sport such as rugby, and it's, like Sarah said, it's a really great thing to bring up and like try to spread the word about it, because not a lot of people know about rugby. I didn't know about it when I came here, and my sweet mate had played it, and she actually got me into joining, and I fell in love with the sport, and it was exactly like what I wanted to do, and so I stuck with it.
Nice, that's very admirable. And Sarah, so doing a sport that most people think of as a male sport, do you ever get any sort of negative reactions?
We do sometimes, but I tend to just ignore that and focus on the positive aspects of the sport. I mean, I have really great friends through rugby, and it's a super competitive sport. It's it's pretty brutal. We don't wear any pads. The only thing you wear is a mouth guard or something called a scrum cap, which is a lightly padded helmet, and I really love the sport.
Well, speaking as an American, I must admit I don't know exactly all the finer points of rugby. So for my fellow Americans, why don't you take us through, Alex, kind of just in layman's terms, how we can understand rugby in comparison to what we might know now?
Well, rugby's a full contact sport. It's similar to football. It's just got a little different rules. Instead of throwing the ball forward, you can only pass backwards. It's full contact, so you tackle whoever has the ball, but the game never stops. The clock is always running for we play 40-minute halves. So the clock is always going. You get tackled, and you're up there trying to fight for the ball, and you keep going. You could kick at any time, so it's also similar to soccer. Yeah, I guess those are like the main points. If it goes out of bounds, there's things called lineouts, where it's kind of like a soccer throw-in. They could throw in the ball to your team, but they have jumpers. I'm actually a jumper, so like two of my teammates lift me by my legs, and I jump up in there, and they lift me up. It's pretty exciting.
It's not something that you see in American sports very often.
Yeah.
So it's a very rough game, though, as I understand it. Like a lot of hard-hitting contact, right? Mm-hmm. So how does that really stack up against your body? Sorry, that sounded weird. That came across weird. How do you handle that?
Well, you'll get hit, and you'll hit people, but you learn how to do it the right way, so you don't get hurt. Most people get a lot of bruises. I know Sarah bruises pretty easily. She can have some pretty terrible bruises. Every once in a while, you'll get hit in the mouth or the nose, and they'll be bleeding sometimes. I think one time, two of our own players actually ran headfirst into each other, and one of them had to get stitches.
Yikes.
So,
Not one of the prouder moments.
Yeah.
Sarah, what would you say was your worst injury you've ever gotten playing this game?
My worst injury, when I was in high school, I actually broke my hand. But a couple years ago, I actually bit through my lip and had to go get stitches at the hospital. Other than that, I've been pretty fortunate. I take the necessary precautions to protect myself during the game.
Okay. And Alex, how about you? Anything noteworthy?
I actually broke my arm, I think maybe 2 years ago or not this recent fall, but the fall before. I went in to tackle somebody and we landed wrong and all their weight kind of went on my arm. So I got a metal plate and 6 screws put in. Yeah, so I guess that was like the biggest injury that happened. I was out for the rest of the season. I actually didn't know it was broken the first time. I was like, oh, my arm kind of hurts. And then like 2 days later, I actually went and got it x-rayed and was like, yep, your arm is broken.
Wow. So you got a broken hand, a broken arm, a bit through lip. Does your family ever worry about you playing this game?
All the time. My mom kind of hates that I play it, especially after I broke my arm. She didn't want me to play again because she said, well, I don't have the money for insurance and all this stuff. If anything happens like this, it's like, Mom, it's not going to happen. I got this.
Wow. So, Sarah, I mean, with it being such a rough contact sport, do egos ever get involved? Do you ever get somebody who just can't stand, you know, that the way you play against each other? Does it ever get down to 2 personalities against each other?
On my team, not necessarily. You have to really work together to succeed on the field. But definitely there's some teams that we play and we despise them. The rivalry is just so intense. The nice thing about rugby, though, is after every game you have a social, which is something different than every other sport. So you may cream each other on the field, but afterwards you come out and you have a meal and you're friends.
We're going to take a short break, but stay tuned for more with Alex and Sarah here on MSU People.
They've been called leaders, lifesavers, and world changers. They're also called Spartans.
We're back in Studio E with 2 members of MSU's women's rugby team. Alex Honey is an MSU senior who is dual majoring in telecommunications and engineering. Sarah Conroy is also a senior studying biomedical laboratory sciences. Welcome back. So before we left, we were on the topic of the competitive nature of the sport and also the social aspect to it. So before we get to the latter part of that, tell me about the competitions. What's it like game to game facing off between these other schools? Alex?
A lot of it comes down to adrenaline. You know, a lot of people get nervous before a game because you got to be fit for it. You've got to know what you're doing. You got to be able to read the field when you're playing. It's a very fast-paced game. So once like kickoff starts, you know, your heart's racing, like you got all the adrenaline, and that kind of helps, I guess, not really calm your nerves, but you're not as afraid anymore. You're just involved in the game. Playing other teams, we always go out like expecting to play our best. So, yeah, I don't know where else I was going to go with that.
Okay. Do you ever personally struggle with nerves, maybe before a game?
A little bit. I'll get nervous right before kickoff, but like once the game actually starts, it's out the window and I'm just focused on the game.
Sarah, how do you manage to stay calm during such an intense sport?
As Alex said, you end up being so focused on the game that you have no chance to even be nervous. If you are nervous, I always tell the girls, you know, try to harness that energy in a positive way and, you know, put it into a really good tackle, or make sure that you have your, you know, eyes on the field so you can try to to advance the ball. But I tend to be okay with my nerves.
Oh, well, that's great, because I know me personally, I'd be all over the place. I'd be a mess. People come to tackle me. It's great. But getting back to the social aspect of it, you talked about a social, Sarah, that you have at the end of every game?
Yeah, so after every game, the teams will get together and we have a meal, and there's songs in the rugby community that everyone knows, and you sing those, and there's chants, and it's a really great time. I think that's a really great aspect of rugby, is that you have a community that everyone feels that they belong to.
Yeah, I've heard all sorts of good things about the community. Alex, before we got into the interview today, you were telling me about some of the traditions that rugby players have, the songs, for example. Are there any more interesting little stories or traditions that you could tell me about?
I guess it's cool because each rugby team, like before we even interact with each other, we all kind of come from the same views or like stuff like that. So we all know the same songs. So you could go and talk to another rugby player that's not necessarily on your team, but they know exactly what you're talking about, and you just already have like a bond or something in common with them. Tradition-wise, we do a lot like what sororities and frats do. We have like bigs and littles, so we have a vet and a rookie. So when you come in playing a rugby, you start off as a rookie, and as you gain more experience, you move up the ladder and you become a vet. So you could take a rookie under your wing, and you could kind of show them the ropes and teach them more how to play the game, and anything else they would need to know. Even outside of rugby, if they need help with school or whatever, like they're some of like your closest friends that you have people that you could count on.
That's great. Looking back, now that you're both seniors, Sarah, what was it like when you were just getting into it, young, didn't know anything about the sport or maybe the people, the community? How was that?
It was nerve-wracking at first. You go into a sport that you really have no idea what it's about. Most people grow up knowing football, but rugby is new to everyone, so that's nerve-wracking. But I found that I was instantly welcome. The girls, they said, it's okay that you don't know the game. Like, everyone has to start somewhere. We'll teach you, and they kind of dragged me along, and now we do that for the new girls on our team, too. We said we were there once, and I think because everyone started at the same point, it creates a bond with a lot of the players.
Well, speaking of learning the game, why don't you take me under your wing and and tell me a little bit about the positions that you play specifically. Alex?
So to break down the rugby field, there are backs and forwards. The forwards are your first line of defense, kind of, and your offense. So if they're usually the bigger girls that do most of the tackling. Obviously, everyone on the team has to know how to tackle when they get matched up with their player who has the ball. But they're always there for like the fight over the ball. They're trying to win possession. Conroy is the scrum half, so she's the middleman between the backs and the forwards. So she can get the ball once the forwards have recovered it to spin it out to the backs, and the backs are usually our fastest players that can try and run up the field to score.
Okay. And okay. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your experiences as student athletes, but first a quick break.
Hannah, it's time. Let's go with that.
Let's go, ladies. Let's make it count.
Let's go. There you go.
Welcome back to MSU People. I'm Jonathan Trites, here in Studio E with two student athletes who are members of MSU's women's rugby team. Alex Honey is a dual majoring in telecommunications and engineering, and Sarah Conroy is majoring in biomedical laboratory sciences. Both are seniors graduating in May. Well, welcome back. Before the commercial break, we were discussing your positions on the field, which got me to thinking, were there any moments that really stand out to you in your mind of maybe a very dramatic play or a moment in the game where everything sort of came together? Sarah, do you want to take this one?
I think earlier this fall was a great moment. There's something called a maul, where when a player's standing up with the ball and a bunch of players are around her, and for some reason there's so many people around that they can't actually go to the ground to set the ball up. So you end up advancing the ball, standing upwards, trying to pass the ball back towards your team. and we were playing a very competitive team that day. And it was probably one of the best plays I've ever seen. Actually, Alex was in the play, and there were probably 6 or 7 other girls that really showed how teamwork and perseverance can be successful on the rugby field. We ended up scoring off of the play, and it was very exciting for us.
And Alex, along the same lines, are there any moments that stood out to you on the field as being one of the most memorable?
That was a good one. There's always, like, at the end of our semester, we usually do, like, best play and stuff like that. So each game, there's always something crazy that happens that's always memorable. Like, somebody will have a really good breakaway, and they'll take off running down the entire length of the field. Or somebody will make a really great tackle, and, like, we just build on that, and we encourage everybody, like, hey, you know, like, that was a really good job that you did. And there's more than just one thing that could stand out. So.
Yeah, great. I'm sure some of our viewers are still a little uncertain. Sarah, could you just take us through who your team competes with, where you travel, what the tournament's like, and just give us a bit of background information on what your team actually does?
Sure. As part of Michigan State, we're part of the Big Ten, so we play Big Ten schools like Michigan. We actually play Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana, Purdue. I'm missing a few in there, but we do a lot of traveling, so teams will come to us, and we'll travel there. So we've traveled even as far as Nashville, Tennessee for tournaments in the spring, where we play teams from all over the country. But our competitive season, we do stick to the Big Ten teams.
And what's that like, Alex, traveling with so many fellow rugby players?
It's always a great time. We don't have, like, a bus or anything that we take. We all take our own cars. So we set up car rides, and you'll be in the car with a couple of your friends, and we'll drive down. A lot of the times, like, cars will leave at the same time. We'll let each other know, like, hey, we're going to stop here for food. Like, you should come eat with us. But it's always great. It's just like a road trip with your friends, going down to play rugby for a weekend, and then you're back up at school the next day.
Wow. And being a part of the Big Ten, sorry, what was the Big Ten tournament? Yes, Big Ten tournament, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's obviously like a pretty big deal, but what is your fan base like? Do you have any sort of fans that travel with you on these games or watch your home games?
When we have home games, like, we practice right on the corner of Hagedorn and Service Road behind Hubbard Hall. So we always get people to come out. Lots of parents will come and watch their kids play. We hosted a breast cancer awareness tournament last year and got a lot of publicity out for that, and a lot of, like, students will come and watch to figure out what it's all about, and it's a great way for everyone to see what it is.
Yeah, but along the same lines, Sarah, why do you think that rugby isn't as popular in the U.S. as it is in other countries?
I think it's a growing sport. I think football really takes the cake with the sports that people like, but it is growing. I know in high schools across the nation, they have teams that are popping up in colleges. There's 2 types of rugby. There's 15s and 7s, where you play with 7 players on the field, and that's become very popular. People like to go to those games. So I think in the next few years we'll see more rugby on TV.
Well, I think that's something that we could all agree would be a good thing. Because, you know, with the U.S., you get holding to your baseball and your basketball and your football, but juggling academics and athletics is not easy. We will hear more about these students' experiences after this short break. Stay tuned. You're watching MSU People.
They've been called leaders, lifesavers, and world changers. They're also called Spartans.
Welcome back. I'm Jonathan Trites, here in Studio E with 2 student athletes who are members of the MSU women's rugby team. Alex Honey is a senior studying telecommunications and engineering, and Sarah Conroy is a senior studying biomedical laboratory sciences. Thanks for being back yet again. So we've been talking about rugby all day. Let's head away from the rugby field just for a moment and talk about your life off the field. How do you manage to balance your academics and athletic performances?
Well, a lot of it has to do with time management. Rugby has our schedule, so you know what days we're going to be practicing on, and we really make that a point to our players, like, hey, you know, like, you have to make it to practice, so when you have other work and stuff you need to do, make sure you get it done beforehand. It's not an excuse to miss practice because you have to study it for an exam the night before when you knew about it earlier. Also, a lot of times, like, especially now, like, for finals week and stuff, a lot of girls get together and we get a table at the library for everyone to help to come and do work. It's a lot of working off of each other and be like, hey, I'm going to be doing this. Like, do you want to come, like, do homework with me pretty much? So.
Sarah, doing your biomedical laboratory sciences, is that ever difficult to, you know, put them both together? Do you ever struggle?
I tend to once in a while. Definitely being a student athlete has taught me how to time manage. Sometimes, you know, you have to make sure that you are putting time away to study outside of practice. I found that I'm actually a better student when I'm busy, and yeah, that's that.
And Alex, I imagine it's got to be very similar to you, actually, with your dual majoring. That's very ambitious. What led you to try to take on such a large task?
Well, I first came to state, my mom really wanted me to do engineering. I was really good with math and science, so it made sense to me at the time. But I did TV studio stuff in high school, and that was my passion. So I found a way to get around that and major in both, and it was like the best of both worlds. But it was definitely tough at times because I was taking 16 to 17 credits a semester, trying to be involved in clubs and sports and everything. And but like as Sarah said, I'm more productive when I'm busier, so that I'm not just wasting time. I'm always doing something, I'm always on the go, and I'm getting stuff done, which is always great.
Well, you must be thinking a lot about your future now with both of you being seniors. Alex, do you have any idea what you plan to do after you graduate?
Well, I'm moving back to New York because I'm originally from there, and I'm hoping to work with a TV station or a network in New York City, so that'll be exciting.
New York. Great pizza. Sarah, do you have any plans for after college?
I do. I'm going to be continuing in laboratory science. I have to do an internship with a hospital to become a certified laboratory technologist. Actually, in the Detroit area where I'm going to be, they have women's rugby teams so I can continue to play if I desire to, or have a desire to. So we'll see how my internship goes if I decide to continue. But either way, I know I'm going to always have my friends with rugby, and I'll always be a part of the community.
So if you don't manage to pursue rugby indefinitely after college, what do you think you'll have taken away from it, Alex?
Definitely memories, for sure. Also, I like watching it. A lot of us, they have the Sevens tournament out in Vegas, and I've gone the last 2 years with friends, and we just go and watch all the games. You watch, like, the New Zealand, like the All Blacks, and Australia, they play, and it's cool seeing all these professional teams.
Well, it has been a pleasure to speak with you, both here on MSU People today. Alex Honey, thanks for being with us today, and we wish you the best of luck in all of your professional endeavors.
Why, thank you.
Thanks. And Sarah Conroy, good luck in your future as well.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today with our Spartan family here on MSU People. I'm Jonathan Trites.
MSU People is hosted, produced, directed, and crewed entirely by students of the Michigan State University Department of Telecommunication Information Studies and Media. I'm Brooks Lane-Beer.